In this session, we are going to have an introduction to Postgre default user. So as a general info, when you install the PostgreSQL on a Linux-based system, let's say I have just installed the Postgre on my EC2 instance, and uh, this is how it looks like. So I am already connected to PuTTY, and this is the shell. And the commands which I have used is sudo dnf, and these commands are available on the PostgreSQL website. And if you go there and you are just select RHEL8, it will show you all the commands. So this is just a list of 6 commands which you have to execute on the server, and this will install PostgreSQL database on your operating system, which is Linux in my case. So once that this is installed, what is the next step which we have to do, and what are the default Postgre user in PostgreSQL instance that we are going to see? So Postgre is the default OS user, and it gets created when you install Postgre on the Linux or the Linux-based system. And there is a database user also created, which is Postgre, and this is the super user, admin user, which is going to be the owner of all the objects inside the PostgreSQL database. So you can check the authentication mode of the Postgre. There is a file which is called as pg_hba.conf, and by default post installation the authentication method is set to peer for all the users which are by default created. In this case, it is Postgre, and it can be MD5 in case you wanted it to make it to be password authenticated forcefully, right? So let's see how it happens. So I have just installed Postgre binary on my system using DNF. These are the commands which you can find it out. And if you just check the status sudo systemctl status, this will show you that this has been done. So see, using sudo systemctl command, we have been able to see the status is active and running. Let's come out of this shell, and when this binary is installed, the database is up and running. We need to make sure there will be a service account who will be able to make it up and running, and that will be the owner of the PostgreSQL instance. So in this case, how to find out those the details? So if you know some basics about the Postgre, so at the operating system, if you just grab etc passwd and grab for Postgre, that will show you that an OS user called Postgre has been created when you are doing the installation. And this is the home directory where the binaries are installed, and this is the bash profile. And how does the authentication happens in that case? So Postgre is the service account owner in this case. So we will switch to that sudo su space minus Postgres. And if you say PSQL, and if you locate the data directory, show data directory, there will be two important files which decides like how the authentication are going to happen. So you can see this is the location of the data directory, and inside the data directory there is a file which is called as hba pg_hba.conf. This file is responsible for host-based authentication. If you see the first line which says anything which is coming from the local, so let's say all the users or all the databases, they will have the by default authentication method peer. So in this case, I'm logged in as operating system user Postgre, who is the service account owner of Postgre instance. And how is the identification is going to happen? So there is a file which is called as, if you navigate to that particular location, there is a file which is called as pghba. Where is it? Another file, pg underscore ident.conf. If you see this file, it will show you how the mapping is going to happen for the particular user. So it refers to the Postgre. Uh, this file controls Postgre username mapping. So it maps external usernames to their corresponding PostgreSQL username. For example, we have just created, or an OS user Postgre has already been created, and there is a database user which is already there. So they are mapped with each other, right? So that's way in basic forms this works. So if you simply say sudo su space minus postgre, which we have already done, and if you simply say psql, and if you see the list of the users, that will show you post installation what are the users which are created by default. So if you say /du, this will show you there is an database user which is Postgre created. It is super user. It has the create role. It has create database replication, and the other details it has. You can find out the details using select username from pg underscore user command as well. So you can see that there is just one user which is created by default. And how can we check the privileges assigned to particular user? So you just mention the username and it will show you what all details it has. So it is, so this is the command. This is good, helpful command. Select table name as a schema and table name as table. Privilege type as privilege from information underscore schema dot table privilege. So this will show you what all it has privileges, what all this particular user Postgre database user can do, and where all it can do the things like insert, update, delete, truncate, those things. So I think there are 1,300 and something still it is going on. Since this is the database super user, so this will have so many things, right? And let's create one user which is called as test user, and if we say /du, this will show you how many users are there in that particular PostgreSQL instance. So we have just two users. One is the default admin user, and the other is the user which we just created. And after that, if you simply say select username from pg underscore user, this will show you that test user and Postgre user, these are the only two users. We can see the information related to the test user as well. And since there are no privileges, it will show you over here. So just a recap of the default Postgre user. So when you install the Postgre on Linux based system using yum or DNF, by default it is going to create a Postgre OS user. That Postgre OS user is mapped to Postgre database user, which is created at the database level, and there is a database also created by default whose name is Postgre. So just you need to make sure that there are three names which are available when you work on Linux based system. Postgre OS user by default, which is created, and that can be verified using the command etc/passwd, and if you graph for Postgre, that will show you the information over there. And there are few more files which maintains like how the authentication is going to happen. So there is uh, pg underscore hba.conf, which controls the host based access authentication. So in this case it is our local host only, wherein this authentication is going to happen at the peer level. And there is something called as one more file is there, the yeah, let me show you once again. This particular file name is called as pg underscore ident dot conf. This particular file, this helps in mapping the OS user with the database user. So in our case, there was an OS user Postgre, and there was a database user Postgre. So that way it has automatically got mapped. I think it is going to help, and thank you.